this point, we turn to our main order paper and questions for all answer. Question 1 is in the hands of Ms Edge.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'd like to ask the Chief Minister how the Immigration Office is informed when a migrant worker holding an immigration visa ceases employment.
Call on the Chief Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and can I echo your earlier welcome and congratulations to the 2 new members for Douglas South, the Honourable Member Mrs Christian and the Honourable Member Mr Quine. The Isle of Man immigration rules place no statutory responsibility on a worker migrant or an Isle of Man employer to inform the Immigration Service where a worker's migrant's employment ceases. However, in practice, the worker migrant and or the Isle of Man employer will notify the Immigration Service either in writing, by telephone or in person at the Immigration Service public counter that the employment has ceased.
Supplementary question, Ms Edge.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Thank the Chief Minister for confirming what he believes is the correct process. I'd just like to ask the Chief Minister what cross-checking is carried out with the work permit system, as every migrant worker requires a work permit system, and what the implementation of the deregistering of an employee on the immigration employment document that takes place.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I think it's worth pointing out that whilst there is no legal requirement, Mr Speaker, the practicalities make people do it. And I will give examples to this Honourable House. The Isle of Man employer has responsibility for applying to the Immigration Service for a confirmation of employment for the worker migrant. The employer informs the Immigration Service so that they are no longer tied to the migrant with the COE, as I'm calling the confirmation of employment, and so they can apply for a further COE to employ another migrant in that job. Also, a worker migrant who ceases employment with one Isle of Man employer may seek employment with an alternative Isle of Man employer, providing it is an eligible job as set out in the immigration rules. The worker migrant informs the Immigration Service, as the migrant cannot hold 2 COVs. They would therefore need a new COV from their new employer. And a worker migrant who ceases employment with an Isle of Man employer would no longer hold a valid confirmation of employment, and subsequently their leave may be curtailed. A worker migrant with no COV is unable to work, and worker migrants are responsible people who look to regularise their stay, not circumvent immigration rules. However, if the Honourable Member has any examples as to the contrary and breaches that they feel are taking place, I'm more than happy to revisit the current rules. But they do seem to be working for us, and we are not talking about large numbers of people using this service. I think if we go back to May 2019 to date, so that's well over a year, there's only been 242. Thank you.
Supplementary question, Ms Edge.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I did ask the Chief Minister if he could confirm how they actually track the individual. Is the Chief Minister aware that when a migrant lands on the Isle of Man, within 14 days the employer has to apply for a work permit? Can the Chief Minister, if he hasn't got the information here today, can he please look at that and ensure me that of the 242 people that they all received and applied for a work permit within 14 days?
Well, strange questions on work permits, but Chief Minister, to be able to answer that question.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm more than happy to confirm that if that's what the Honourable Member says the rules are. I'm not going to contradict the Honourable Member. What I'm trying to advise Honourable Members of this House is that I've never been made aware of a problem. If you don't comply with the rules, you can't get another permit. You can't legally work here, and anyone wanting to come here and work illegally, the employer is breaking the law, as well as themselves, and I can't see anyone putting themselves in that situation. However, again, I reiterate that if the Honourable Member has seen a number of cases where there is a clear breach, then I'm more than happy to discuss this with the immigration team to see if there's a need and a way to tighten up our rules.